Welcome to our deep dive into Matt Ridley's The Rational Optimist.
Always a good one.
We had a listener question come in.
Okay.
Wanting to know just what makes Ridley so optimistic about the future.
Right.
And to get there, I think we really need to take a look at the patterns of human progress
Yeah.
that he lays out in the book.
Absolutely.
So get ready for a fascinating trip through time.
Yeah.
From prehistory to the modern world, with Matt Ridley as our guide.
He makes a very compelling case.
He does.
And his optimism really hinges on this core idea,
Right.
exchange.
Yeah.
He argues that the exchange of goods, ideas, knowledge is the very engine of prosperity.
It's not just about bartering, though, right?
Yeah.
It's a much broader concept.
Exactly. Think about it this way.
Yeah.
Instead of each of us having to grow our own food, build our own homes, and make our own clothes,
Right.
we specialize.
Yeah.
And by specializing and trading with each other, we become far more efficient and productive.
Okay.
So it's like having,
Hundreds of unseen servants working for us globally.
He even compares our modern lives to Louis XIV's court.
He does.
Saying we have access to more servants.
More servants than a king.
Than a king ever did.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a mind-blowing concept.
It's a bit outlandish.
Yeah.
When you first hear it.
Right.
But think about it.
Yeah.
How many people are involved in something as simple as your morning coffee?
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
You've got the farmers who grew the beans.
Right.
You've got the truck drivers who transported them. The baristas who brewed your cup.
Right.
It's a global network of exchange that brings that coffee to your hand.
It is incredible when you think about it.
Yeah.
All of this
Yeah.
intricate collaboration
Just noticed.
that often goes completely unnoticed.
Yeah.
Yet it underpins our
modern lives.
modern lives in a profound way.
And that's Ridley's point.
Okay.
We take this complex system for granted, but it's the foundation
Yeah.
of our current prosperity and well-being. So exchange is a big one.
Big one.
But Ridley also tackles another pretty contentious topic.
He does.
Population growth.
Yeah.
He goes head-to-head with that Malthusian prediction.
Right.
That more people inevitably means more misery.
Right. The classic argument, we'll run out of resources,
Yeah.
descend into chaos.
Yeah.
And Ridley flips the script.
Okay.
He suggests that a larger population actually fuels innovation.
Okay.
More people.
More brains.
More brains, more solutions.
But wouldn't a denser population automatically lead to more competition for resources?
Sure.
And ultimately conflict?
Yeah, that's the
Flattening.
assumption.
Right.
But Ridley points to some historical examples that challenge this.
Okay.
Japan, Ireland, Denmark.
Okay.
All experienced significant population growth
Okay.
without collapsing.
Interesting.
In some instances, this population density actually spurred innovation and economic growth.
So how does he explain those seemingly contradictory outcomes?
He argues that the key lies in how societies adapt. Take Britain in the 18th century.
Okay.
The Industrial Revolution took off during a period of population boom.
Right.
Ridley suggests this wasn't a coincidence. He calls it a demographic dividend.
Okay.
So you have a larger workforce and consumer base fueled by a higher birth rate among the wealthy.
Okay.
And this created fertile ground for innovation and specialization.
So instead of being a drain, a larger population actually provided the fuel for progress.
In the right circumstance.
In the right circumstances, yeah.
Precisely.
Interesting.
It's a provocative idea, isn't it?
It is.
What if population growth, while undoubtedly presenting challenges,
Right.
also holds a key to unlocking future solutions and prosperity?
Yeah. It certainly challenges the doom and gloom narrative we so often hear.
It does.
But let's move on to another key point.
Okay.
The nature of innovation itself.
Okay.
Ridley argues that groundbreaking inventions don't always come from
Yeah.
scientific breakthroughs, as we might assume.
You're right. He dismantles this myth that innovation is purely a product of scientific laboratories.
Right.
In fact, he highlights how practical problem-solving tinkering, trial and error, have often led to some of the most revolutionary inventions.
Like the steam engine, for instance.
Yeah.
He points out that early versions of this world-changing machine
Right.
were developed through sheer ingenuity and experimentation.
Absolutely.
Well before the science of thermodynamics was even understood.
Long before, and
Yeah.
even more recently,
Yeah.
inventions like the airplane and the internet,
Right.
they didn't simply appear
Right.
fully formed from scientific equations.
Yeah.
They were the result of countless individuals tinkering,
Yeah.
experimenting, failing, and building on each other's ideas.
This is so relevant to anyone working on a project,
I think so.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes we get so bogged down
You can get bogged down.
in research,
Yeah.
waiting for that perfect solution
Waiting for that perfect knowledge.
or complete knowledge.
Yep.
But Ridley's point is, don't wait, start experimenting.
Exactly.
The very act of doing can lead to unexpected breakthroughs.
Yeah. Putting ideas into practice.
Right.
Learning from both successes and failures.
Uh-huh.
That's often where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've talked about the importance of exchange, the surprising role of population growth,
Right.
and the unexpected origins of innovation.
Yeah.
But Ridley also delves into the history of progress itself,
He does.
challenging some pretty deeply held assumptions.
Yes, he really takes aim at the romantic view
Okay.
of pre-industrial societies.
Okay.
This idea that hunter-gatherers lived in harmony with nature,
Right.
or that early farmers enjoyed a simpler, more fulfilling life.
I have to admit, I was surprised by his take on this.
Okay.
I'd always imagined those early societies as more peaceful
Yeah.
and connected to nature.
It's a common misconception.
All right.
But Ridley argues that hunter-gatherers often faced violence and scarcity,
Really?
while early farmers were constantly battling over resources and dealing with the unpredictable whims of nature.
He uses the Bronze Age city of Uruk as a prime example, right?
He does.
This was a hub of innovation and trade.
It was.
There was also a place of hierarchy and exploitation.
Exactly. The merchants who generated wealth were often at the mercy of powerful rulers.
Right.
It's a stark reminder that human nature is complex.
Yeah.
And that every society, regardless of its technological advancements,
Right.
grapples with its own set of problems and injustices.
So where does this leave us? If the past wasn't some idyllic paradise,
Right.
is Ridley simply ignoring the real problems that we face today?
Not at all.
Okay.
He fully acknowledges present-day challenges,
Okay.
like climate change and resource depletion, but it's his understanding of the past
Yeah, okay.
that fuels his optimism for the future.
Okay, so how does he reconcile those
Yeah.
two seemingly contradictory viewpoints?
That's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay. Sounds good. Stay tuned. Okay, so we've established that Ridley sees human history not as a steady decline, but as a story of continuous improvement, even with all its bumps along the way.
He does.
But how does that translate to optimism about the future,
Right.
especially considering the very serious issues that we face today?
That's the crux of his argument, isn't it?
Yeah.
He doesn't shy away from acknowledging present-day problems,
Right.
but instead of getting bogged down in despair,
Yeah.
he points to a consistent pattern.
Okay.
Throughout history, humanity's remarkable ability to innovate and adapt.
He cites some pretty compelling examples.
He does.
Like the decline in cancer deaths,
Yeah.
the reforestation happening in many parts of the world, the falling cost of renewable energy.
Yes. And he ties those positive trends to another key element of his argument.
Okay.
Getting richer actually makes societies more resilient to environmental problems.
Interesting.
As we develop new technologies and deepen our understanding of the world, we become better equipped to address the challenges we face.
It's kind of a counterintuitive idea
It is.
that wealthier nations are better positioned to tackle environmental issues.
It is.
But it makes sense when you think about it.
It does.
A society struggling for basic survival doesn't have the resources or the bandwidth
Right.
to focus on sustainability.
Precisely. And as societies become wealthier, they tend to prioritize things like clean air, clean water,
Right.
a healthy environment.
Yeah.
It's a natural progression.
This is a refreshing perspective in a world
I think so.
often dominated by negative headlines.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we may actually be getting better at solving problems, even as new ones emerge.
Oh.
But some critics argue that Ridley is too dismissive
Okay.
of the magnitude of the challenges we face, particularly climate change.
Right.
How does he respond to that?
It's true that he tends to downplay the potential risks of climate change.
Okay.
And some might say he's overly optimistic about our ability to adapt.
Right.
But he doesn't deny the science. Okay. His argument is rooted in the historical record of human ingenuity. We've overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles in the past, and he believes we'll do so again.
So he's not advocating for complacency.
No.
It's more about a balanced perspective.
Right.
Recognizing the seriousness of the issue
Yeah.
while also maintaining a belief in our capacity to find solutions.
Exactly. He argues that succumbing to fear and pessimism can be paralyzing.
Right.
It's a more productive and ultimately more hopeful approach, to acknowledge the challenges while also focusing on our ability to innovate and adapt.
Okay, that brings us back to the central theme of Ridley's Optimism.
Okay.
The power of human ingenuity.
Yes.
It's this belief that our capacity for innovation,
right,
driven by exchange specialization and a relentless pursuit of progress, will ultimately prevail.
And it's not just a blind faith. He backs it up with historical evidence. Countless examples of humanity overcoming adversity and finding ways to improve our lives, often in surprising and unexpected ways.
But his focus seems to be primarily on the Western world.
Sure.
Some argue that his perspective is too Eurocentric.
Okay.
How does he address the uneven progress in other parts of the world?
You're right. That's a valid criticism.
Yeah.
But he does delve into other regions, including Africa and Asia.
Okay.
He explores the factors that have hindered progress in these areas.
Okay.
And he's particularly critical of the role of bad governance, corruption, and the lack of secure property rights in holding back economic development.
So while he's optimistic about humanity's overall potential, he recognizes that not everyone has benefited equally from progress.
Right.
And that closing this gap requires addressing the institutional and political barriers that prevent certain regions from thriving.
It's not just about celebrating past achievements, but also about learning from our mistakes.
Right.
And ensuring that future progress is more inclusive and equitable. This leads to another fascinating aspect of Ridley's argument.
Okay.
The evolution of trust.
Okay, so how does trust fit into this narrative of progress and optimism?
Ridley argues that trust between strangers, facilitated by institutions and norms that promote fairness and cooperation, is fundamental to economic development.
Interesting.
Think about it. Without a basic level of trust,
Yeah.
complex trade networks and large-scale collaborations simply wouldn't be possible.
Right.
He traces this evolution of trust back to our earliest ancestors,
Okay.
starting with small kin-based groups and gradually expanding outwards as trade networks and cities emerged.
And institutions that enforce contracts.
Yes.
Protect property rights, establish a reliable legal framework have been essential in this process.
They help extend that circle of trust beyond our immediate family and tribe, enabling cooperation on a much larger scale.
It's fascinating how this concept of trust even applies to the digital world. We routinely buy products online from people we've never met.
Right.
Rely on reviews from anonymous users.
Yeah.
And even trust our financial information to digital platforms.
It's remarkable, isn't it?
It is.
Technology, despite its potential pitfalls, also has this incredible ability to facilitate trust and enable new forms of economic activity.
Right.
And Ridley sees this trend continuing with technology, playing an even greater role in connecting people, building relationships, and fostering cooperation across borders.
It's a hopeful vision for the future.
It is.
But what about the human element?
Right.
Does technology overshadow the importance of individual values and cultural evolution?
That's a great question, and one that leads us deeper into Ridley's vision for the future.
So we've covered a lot of ground exchange innovation, even the evolution of trust.
We have.
But where does the human element sit in?
Right.
Does Ridley believe technology alone holds the key to a brighter future?
While he's certainly a proponent of technology's potential, Ridley doesn't dismiss the significance of human values and cultural evolution.
Right.
In fact, he argues that our values have progressed alongside our material advancements.
It's interesting to consider how values might influence our choices.
Right.
Which then drive innovation and economic growth. Could it be a kind of positive feedback loop?
Yeah.
Where progress in one area reinforces progress in others?
That's precisely what Ridley suggests.
Okay.
He points out that as societies become wealthier and more interconnected, they also tend to become more tolerant, less violent, and place a higher value on individual rights and freedoms.
So it's not just about gadgets and gizmos, it's about how our values shape the world we create.
Right.
But is Ridley suggesting that this upward trajectory will simply continue indefinitely?
He certainly believes this upward spiral of progress is likely to continue, possibly even accelerate in the coming decades.
Wow.
He envisions a future where poverty is eradicated, diseases are conquered, and humanity reaches new heights of prosperity and well-being.
It's a bold vision.
It is.
But he doesn't present it as a foregone conclusion. Right?
No.
He acknowledges that there will be challenges along the way.
Absolutely. He's not naive to the complexities of the world.
Right.
But he grounds his optimism
Oh, yeah.
in the long-term trends of human history.
Okay.
He argues that while progress isn't inevitable, it is probable given our track record of innovation and problem solving.
I imagine there are plenty of people who find his views overly optimistic,
Right.
even unrealistic.
Yeah.
How does he respond to those who believe we're headed for disaster?
Okay.
Whether it's environmental collapse,
Sure.
economic inequality, or some other unforeseen catastrophe.
He engages directly with those criticisms, dissecting the arguments and highlighting what he sees as flaws in their logic.
So he's not simply dismissing those concerns.
Yeah.
He's presenting an alternative interpretation of the evidence.
Exactly. And he also pushes back against the idea that economic growth is inherently unsustainable.
Okay.
He believes that innovation and technological advancements can decouple economic growth from resource depletion and environmental damage.
It's a debate that's likely to continue.
It is.
But Ridley's work offers a powerful counter-narrative to the pervasive pessimism of our times.
I think so.
It's a reminder that progress is possible, that human ingenuity is a powerful force.
Absolutely.
And that we shouldn't underestimate our capacity to solve problems and create a better future.
You know, it's interesting to think about the implications of his argument for us as individuals.
Yeah.
What can we take away from Ridley's rational optimist, even if we don't agree with every single point?
That is a great question. I think at its core, Ridley's work encourages us to view the world through a different lens.
A different lens,
He invites us to look beyond the immediate headlines and consider the long-term trends that are shaping our lives.
I agree.
And perhaps even more importantly,
Okay.
it reminds us that we're not just passive observers of history.
We are participants.
We are active participants in shaping the future.
I like that it's a call to action.
It is.
An invitation to embrace our roles as creators and problem solvers.
Right.
To approach the challenges of our time with a sense of optimism and a belief in our own capacity to make a difference.
It really is. So as you navigate your day, your week, your life, I encourage you to look for those patterns of progress all around you.
I love that.
The small innovations, the acts of kindness, the collaborations that are making the world a slightly better place.
It's all around us.
And ask yourself, what role can I play in continuing this story of progress? What problems can I help solve? What possibilities can I help create?
Powerful questions.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on this deep dive into the rational optimist. What resonated with you? What challenged your assumptions? And what patterns of progress do you see in your own life or work? Let us know.